So hi everyone, in today's video it's a small tip that I'm going to share. A lot of you have been asking me, how do we cook a bindi right? Now there are various parts to cooking a bindi. So first is actually choosing the right quality bindi. It has to be nice and slender, and it has to be soft, it has to be yet firm, and when you break it in the edge it should break very easily, and it should not be stiff, it should feel tender. So that's how you pick a bindi. And the next most important thing is to cut the bindi. Cutting a bindi is extremely important because that determines how well it's going to cook. So the various ways you can cut it, and I'm going to show you just now. One is cutting it into 1.5 inch size pieces, and this is something that you can do. It's great for gravies, right? So when you want to make like a bindi masala with ajwain in a tomato gravy, then you can actually cut it like this, and you roast the bindi separately, make the masala separately, and then add it. The next is to actually, make when you make a South Indian bindi poriyal, then you actually cut it into rounds. Here, the most important tip is to not ensure that you cut it very thin. Cut it very thin. See, this is extremely thin. You don't want the bindi to be so thin, because when it becomes so thin, then it will become mushy and gooey. So always give this much gap between each bindi piece, and then cut it, because it's going to shrink in size when it goes into the pan. So ensure it's not thin, but it's of this size. Notice the difference between these two. There is a huge difference. All right, so this is one. And a lot of times we also like to cut it long and slender. And for that, you cut the bindi into half. And what I do typically is to just simply half it. If it's a thin bindi, then it just half it. If it's a little more fatter bindi, then you make it into 3 pieces. Ensure that you don't, here as well, ensure that the pieces are a little more broader, because if it goes thinner, then what happens is it'll become very sticky. So essentially, if you make it thin like this, then your bindi, when you're cooking in the pan, becomes extremely sticky, and you won't feel the texture of the bindi. So we have 3 different types of cuts for the bindi, and this is very important, knowing how to cut your bindi, because the moment it goes in the pan, it'll shrink and it'll soften. Now going into the pan. So typically, if you're making a sukha bindi, then you can add all your tadka and the masala and oil and mustard seeds and all of that into it, allow it to crackle, and then add the bindi. So once you add the bindi, so I'm not going to be showing you the cooking process. So once you add the bindi in, what is important is you sprinkle the salt, and then you cover the pan for about a minute. When you see the bindi starting to sweat, then you immediately open it, stir fry it, and after that part, when you see it sweat a little bit and it's releasing moisture, you keep the jar open. A great way to do it is, what I do typically is, when I have large quantity, if you're using a kadai, I typically keep a ladle inside over here, so that the jar is open, so that the slight steam keeps escaping. At the same time, there is steam which is covering, with small portion which is covered, and then it is cooking the bindi. This way, the bindi will never become sticky and mushy and all that glue thing that you find. It's important to keep the jar open. And if you're making a bindi masala with a tomato gravy, saute the masala separately, cook the bindi separately, and then put them together. So these are the quick tips that I have for how to cook a bindi perfectly. Do give these tips a try, and when you do, try out all our recipes which are on our website, and then I hope you enjoy cooking them. Thank you.